Do you know what? It was so good that the mic wasn't even turned on because I didn't have any words. Like, I thought, like, by accident, I didn't stream this week. Okay, there was just a lot of like live stuff that came up, and it meant I had to be up early and up super late at the same time. So like, it just was one of them hectic weeks. And part of me was like, I feel really bad because it was an exciting week. They were coming off of an unlikely win against the Saints, and you're hoping and presuming that's the turning point, that's the resilience this team needed, and that's the spark under them. Like it lit a fire perhaps under the belly of this team that can now just let them go on and be themselves and be the team that we all know they can be. And instead, the defense comes out from week 2. The offense is just as bad as ever. Jalen Hurts looks terrible. Now you've got injuries mounting up across the board. And very quickly, this season has gone from one that felt like only a few weeks ago, we were saying it's NFC Championship or it's a disappointment, to where we are now, where I don't even know what the expectations are now. My hope is that Sirianni's gone by about week 8 because they've got a bye week right now to try and figure this out and understand what even happens with Sirianni. Do they fire the head coach? Like you've got to start asking questions because ultimately it starts and ends with him. Special teams outside of that one play was abysmal. They're running into their own players constantly. The play calling on offense makes no sense. Jalen Hurts has been terrible. Quinion Mitchell has been the only saving factor. And it is exactly the same as I said last week, which is this is not a team that is a good team. It's just not. It is being carried by individual excellence on a weekly basis. It is a Saquon Barkley carry job. It's a Quinion Mitchell. It's a Jalen Carter. It's key stars playing exceptionally to make up for the bulk of mediocrity on this team. And that's just not sustainable. That's not winning football. Championship teams might not have star players. They might not have like 4 or 5, 6, 7 guys that you can lean on and say that's one of the top 5 in his position in the league. But they've got, who's that undrafted free agent that's just come up and put up 120 yards? Who's that 7th round pick that everyone forgot about that's just made 8 tackles and a crucial interception? Who's this guy they traded for or picked up off waivers that's just made a sudden impact? That's the difference between a championship team and a non-championship team. And the Eagles right now have got an incredibly young defense with a good coach where it feels just like on a weekly basis, you either get one of 2 outcomes. And on offense, you had no excuses at the start of the year. There was no excusing any of it. And now you're at a point where Lane Johnson was out, Smitty was out. I'm seeing people today in my replies on Twitter talking about how Jalen Hurts' decision-making and appalling play inside the pocket is not his fault, and it's because A.J. Brown's not there or Smitty's not there, which is bollocks because regardless of who you've got there, they only matter really when the ball is in the air or when you throw the ball. If Jalen Hurts is staring someone down or cannot read the fact, like he's just shrugged off a player and can't sense that the player is still there breathing down his neck, that has nothing to do with someone 20 yards down the field. That's all on the quarterback. So there's a lot to dissect from this loss, and none of it is pretty. And again, I was kind of hoping that this would be a very positive thing where the Bucs weren't exactly in a strong position. They were vulnerable in certain areas. The Eagles felt like they matched up pretty well. And then you just come away from it feeling just deflated. It's the only word, just absolutely deflated. Not knowing what the identity of this team is anymore. It's not a run-first team because they pass it on first down for no yardage whatsoever. Then they run it on 2nd and long for no yardage whatsoever. And then they pass it on 3rd and long short of the sticks. Relentlessly every time. So I don't know. I'm honestly at a loss. Like, I knew things were bad. I thought it might take 7, 8 weeks. If the wheels were going to fall off, I would have thought it would have taken half a year, maybe when they're like 0.500 on the record and they're scrambling for a few wins. Like last year, they ended up going, like 10-2 before the wheels fell off and they were running through everyone to a point, but there were questionable calls each time. There were bad decisions each game. There was stuff like red flags popping up everywhere, but it didn't matter because they were winning. Now they're not winning. And now those red flags are still as prevalent as ever, despite all of the changes this offseason. So I don't know. Well, I've never been so confused about a team. And I'll get to your comments in a minute, but I've never once sat at an article or at a live stream I just wondered, like, it's past 9 p.m. here. I'm allowed a little bit of foul language. All right, let me off. I'm British. But what the fuck is going on? What are we watching with this Eagles team? This is a team, again, it needs no introduction. The offense on paper, you've got a generational offensive line filled with elite starters and Pro Bowlers. Wide receiving tandem might be the best in the NFL. You've arguably got the best running back in football. I don't think that can be debated. Okay, Saquon Barkley is absolutely generational. He was like a Bugatti in a cow shed in New York. That's even looking like the same here at the minute. You've got a quarterback that you're paying $150 million to, and he's playing like prime Trevor Lawrence. And that's a compliment. What are the excuses? It's not he doesn't have talent around him. It's not he doesn't have a good O-line. It's not he doesn't have a good run game to support his, tendencies. Where do we start? Like, you can't sit after that loss. You've got a route ending in the, look, the only thing I would ask of this team, of any team in football, is if you're getting blown out and you're losing, just stay in the fight. Because it's not about, you're going to lose, you're going to go down, but go down swinging, prove you can score points, get a couple of scoring drives in, and just generate some momentum off that and say, look, we're not dead. We had a bad day at the office. It was fine. You've got a route with about 2 minutes to go deep into the end zone where John Ross stops running. That's right. The guy that runs like a 3.2 40-yard dash, like one of the quickest men in NFL history, stopped running. Just gave up. Doesn't matter where the ball was going. Doesn't matter if the ball's out of bounds. Stop running. You've got tackling like players are covered in oil and Vaseline. You've got a quarterback that can't make decisions. You've got a coach that can't make decisions. And you've got a pair of coordinators that just can't generate sustainable momentum. And I feel like you've got two separate issues. On defense, I think it's personnel. Because you've got this weird mix of, again, highly inexperienced players with massive upside. Nolan Smith, Bryce Huff. You can throw Jalen Carter in there. Quinion Mitchell is certainly one of them, although he's playing his ass off and is exempt from any form of criticism in this stream. The rest of them, Avonte Maddox has been washed for a while. The linebackers are low risk, high reward. At safety, it's still kind of low risk, high reward. Like it just is, if we're honest, with CJ and Reed. This is the way it's been for a couple of years now. And on offense, it's the opposite, where you've got all of the shiny toys and no idea how to use them. No idea what's going on. It's like if 16-year-old Liam was dropped into a strip club. He had no idea what to do with him. No, not a Scooby-Doo. Like, I just do not understand how you can have two completely different issues. Like a team-wide issue of, right, it's coaching. A team-wide issue of, well, they're not executing. Well, they're missing tackles. They're doing this. But it's everything. And I've never seen such disarray ever. And it's just bizarre. So I know I got 10 comments, so I'm going to get to these because I promise I don't want you to ignore you guys. Where are we at? Dan says, hey, everyone, happy Sunday. It will be happy if the Eagles weren't absolutely useless, but a happy Sunday to you as well. Mark says, I honestly expected more out of this coaching staff. I wonder how it would be if the Eagles just said F it and hired young coaches that actually had ideas. I mean, and that's the thing, isn't it, when it comes to Nick Sirianni, because Sirianni is technically a young coach. I think the thing with Sirianni, if we're being honest, is that he was very much a yes guy, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But after what happened with Doug Peterson and what happened with Jim Schwartz, of coaches that had their laurels and they sat on them as any good coach should, if you've got a system and it works, don't bend it because some old guy in a suite is telling you, well, we need more edge rushers. Like, forget that. It's working. Do your thing. That's the way it's always been in the NFL. But Sirianni was very much coming from a coordinator role, very young, malleable. Like, I remember that first interview he ever had. And as much as everyone slagged it off, like the big takeaway for me was him saying that he would do whatever it took to get the team winning, to put players in the best possible position to make plays. What possible positions is he putting them in today outside of positions to fail? Right? Because now, as the same with any young coach, it is very yes, I'll take it. Yes, please, Daddy Jeff. Any coach that's like that starts to get a bit of ego because they start to win. That's the natural Look at any head coach that is young, that is unproven. Cliff Kingsbury is a great example, that comes in and they might go, yeah, we'll do this, we'll do it this way, and we'll do it that way, and we'll build it around this guy. And then 6 weeks in, it's completely different because the coach has his vision and wants to stand on that and prove he's right. It's all a game of ego. And I don't think Sirianni is aware enough to understand what... It's difficult as well because we still don't know the control he has and the control he doesn't. But it doesn't feel like this is a Kellen Moore offense. This does not feel like someone else is pulling the strings. You know, if you have a change in management at your job and nothing changes, and the old guy that was a manager is now an assistant manager, it makes you wonder what's actually happening. You know, it's that sort of thing. Isaac isn't happy. It might have been because I said a naughty word. I'm not sure, but I'll get clarification on that from Sir Isaac soon. Eagles 2-2. I lost £4. Now, I don't know if you mean in terms of betting or like weight loss, and if it's healthy weight loss. So if it's healthy weight loss, congratulations, and you know, keep doing you, man. That's amazing. If it's betting, that sucks. And if it's unhealthy, understandable. But we're all here. So I think I've covered every base there just in case. Earl says facts. Ant says, I say fire Nick Sirianni and hire Kellen Moore as our new head coach. Smile. This is pathetic and garbage how Nick Sirianni does not know how to coach and handle the duties and responsibilities. Yeah, again, it very much comes down to just what is he doing? Because if he's not coaching it, is he just a cheerleader? Oh, he posted it because of the game, not the naughty words. All right, I'm allowed more naughty words. I've been cleared of my wrongdoing there. But I'll touch on it. I promise I'm not brushing over any comments, but this one links to it quite well. I feel like firing Sirianni will cause more problems now than it will later. It's not Sirianni's fault that tackling is an issue. It's not his fault that Hurts can't hit checkdowns. That's fair. However, I would argue to a point that you have to examine the Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni dynamic as well, I would say. And you look at the differences between them in terms of character and how they approach things. One's very stoic, very within himself, very cold-hearted, just comes, works hard, actions do the talking. And Nick Sirianni is just like a Labradoodle puppy that is just nipping at everyone and biting everything and going, ow, 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 ow. Like, that's Nick Sirianni. And you, even in modern relationships, like outside of football, talk about friends and beyond, you can't get many occasions where those two dynamics work because they often just clash. Like, that's, you know, life. But I wonder if, because like, you've got to think of this from Hurts as well, that he's in a situation where he should be winning. He knows he should be winning. He's in a situation to win MVP, to get to a Super Bowl, to right the wrongs of last year, and to prove himself. And he came off a year of being handcuffed by whatever was going on offensively, whether it was Brian Johnson or otherwise. You come into this season, and it's happening again, but under a slightly different guise. How much longer can that fire burn, right? And I'm not excusing Jalen Hurts of wrongdoing because he was terrible out there today. Like, he was useless. I would have rather had Tanner McKee in there. But in terms of trying to find a reason for it, you wonder, like, AJ's, you know, MIA has been a couple of weeks. Smitty wasn't there today. Lane Johnson's down. Your center goes down. You're down, 24 points at halftime. And you're just going, what are we doing? What are we actually doing here? Like, I'm trying my best. I'm trying to run a third down play, and they just keep running 2 yards every time. I'm trying to go deep on second down, and they're just running into double coverage. Every time I give the ball to Saquon, they're bottling him up. We've not run a screen all game. We've not run a swing all game. We've not had... It felt like there was very little motion in comparison to... am I just... Please tell me if I'm wrong or if I've missed anything. But if someone can, like, potentially either back this up or disprove it, was there like a significant drop in motion and stuff behind the line of scrimmage? Because I couldn't remember any running back screens or passes. Did Saquon even have he was targeted on the first play. There was a wheel route on the first play of the game, which didn't pan out. And you're like, oh, this is promising. They're using Saquon on a wheel route. And then that disappeared. And so I don't know. I don't know how much of it falls on Hurts in terms of Hurts is playing bad and how much is I can't do anything. Like, I'm just stood here taking hit after hit. I can't get the ball out. We can't run the ball outside of a breakaway run. I'm just going to fuck it, lob it over there. Like, at what point when, if you, and again, I'm not saying this is true, but if you hypothesize that the two are clashing in terms of like system mentality, in terms of what they both want to accomplish on the football field, how much more do you endure? Like, even if you love your job, if you love what you do, and your boss you just clash with every single day, and he's got something just to grate at you with, and he's too happy when the company's falling apart, and he's too sad when the company's happy, how much longer do you sit in that job before you go, I can't do this? I need to find somewhere else. And that's, again, normal. If it wasn't a professional sport, you'd excuse it, I guess, to a certain point. Because what else is expected? I know he didn't have his best game. It was one of his worst games. But it didn't help that the defense was like, the defense couldn't defend a slant route all game. Absolutely not. When the Bucs have 11 minutes of possession and the Eagles have one or whatever it was through one quarter, that's a problem on both sides. Like, Hurts isn't the only issue here. He's certainly a big part of it, and he's the face of it because he's a quarterback. But I don't think he's exclusively at fault for what was just a shoddy game. All the Bucs did all day was slants and posts over the middle, and the Eagles just could not stop any of them. Not one. Not one. I can't. The camera will just pan out and middle of the field, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Sterling Shepard, bro. We're letting Sterling Shepard juice us up now. You know? All over the middle. If there was a heat map, Baker Mayfield, red in the middle, blue everywhere else. And it's one of them. If the blueprint's out and you know how to beat them, use it. The Saints, in fairness, if you go off of what we've seen in the first few weeks, they're not a middle of the field team. They've got so much speed and power outside with guys like Olave. They've got so much zip in the middle from the rushing perspective with Alvin Kamara that you just don't need to target the middle of the field. So if the Eagles struggle in the middle, but they're great on the perimeter because it's their corners, and the Saints love taking deep shots like they've been running like, prime college offenses all year, then it would make sense that they struggle against Philadelphia, who sit back further to eliminate those deeper shots. The corners are in a better position to succeed, and there's no traffic over the middle. You compare it to this, where the ball is being spread around, in credit to Baker Mayfield, perfectly, and they've got no answer because they've gone, well, they're bad over the middle, bang, gone. Over the middle again, bang. Like at halftime, not a single change was made in that regard. And it's just infuriating. Like, I don't know what else I can say about it. Like, it's one of the weirdest losses I've ever seen. Like, from this Eagles era, like from the Jalen Hurts, the Nick Sirianni era, even the end of the Doug Peterson era, like that's one of the worst losses I can remember. The scoreline might not reflect it. There might have been worse ones out there. But in terms of the way it was lost and the constant missed tackles, the flags, the missed passes, the dodgy play calls, the only saving grace here is the fact that the Eagles were not good enough to be in a position where they had to debate going for a field goal or a touchdown. So Nick Sirianni is like, well, my hands are clean. No bozo decisions from me today because everyone else did it for me. Just, it's wild. Isaac says, I know you don't want a positive spin, but here's the thing. We have a bye to basically get all of our good players healthy and look at the next 4 matchups. They seem easy. The response is what matters. I agree with that. But the bye week after, if we're honest, a run of form where they could have lost to the Packers, they probably should have lost. Oh, no, they did lose in week 2. They should have lost in week 3. They lost in week 4. I don't know what a week's going to do, if I'm honest. Like, you can have an early turnaround and they can use it as all the fuel they want to go and look at the tape and whatever, and they might come out swinging. But they had a bye week in 2023. It didn't change anything, They had a bye week going into the playoffs. No, they didn't last year. I beg your pardon. But I don't know. They had a whole offseason as well, Isaac. That's the thing. They had a whole offseason. They had a whole training camp. They had a whole preseason. That's enough time to understand what you're good at, what you're bad at, how to negate what you're not. And they're just not. So I try never to be a doomy Eagles fan. That's never my intent. Like I try to sit and be as down the middle as I can. But if I'm calling it like I see it and I'm being objective, that was objectively horrendous. And I don't know where they go from here. I think they need a coach. Like they've exhausted. The thing is, right? Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman must be desperate for a Super Bowl. Like there's no other explanation to the way that they've approached the last two off seasons. And you look at the players they've added, the types of contract they've added, all of that stuff, even the coaching changes where you felt like, right, we're going to give Sirianni a chance. And if he blows it, he's out. Yeah, that was it. It was like, we're going to keep you around, but we're taking away Brian Johnson. We're taking away Sean Desai. We're taking away Matt Patricia. We're going to give you, have Kellen Moore. And we love Vic Fangio, so easy. Like the obsession with Vic Fangio in itself needs to be studied because I still don't understand what that's about, but fair enough. So they've exhausted every avenue without firing Nick Sirianni by now. They've tried everything. They've got the offense. If you could build an offense and you were given $150 million in salary to build an offense, I don't think you change much. That's the scary thing. Who would you change? You keep an AJ and Smitty. You're going to keep the offensive line, maybe make a change at one of the backup spots. That's probably about it, right? Tight ends, probably all right. Running back, you're not changing. That leaves Jalen Hurts. And if you're changing Jalen Hurts, you've got a big problem. So that in itself is another interesting debate. But the fact that that offense is built arguably as good as it can possibly be, the defense has enough potential to become a top 5 unit in this league this year. Forget next year and beyond. Like right now, it could be. And they're falling so short of every even mild expectation. Even the most bearish expectations imaginable, they're falling short of. Then something has to change. And they've changed everything but the man at the top of the table. You know, if you've got a car and it goes in for its service and the brake's dead, then the next month, the brakes have gone. I was like, you go in the first week, the brakes are dead. The second week, the cam belt's gone. The third week, the suspension's dodgy. The fourth week, one of your hubcaps has wobbled off. The fifth week, the windscreen wipers don't work. At what point do you just get a new car and stop trying to salvage whatever's left of that one? We've seen the best from Nick Sirianni, and even that was short. We've seen the worst of Nick Sirianni, and that is much more terrifying. If this team is serious about a Super Bowl, and it's serious about it now, and they have to be because of the way the money's distributed with Jalen's contract, with Smitty's contract, with AJ's contract, when you look at the amount of rookies defensive, this is the other thing. You've got Davis, Carter, Smith, all of them, rookie deals still. Now you've got Cooper DeJean. Now you've got Quinion Mitchell, rookie deals. That's 5 players who are first and second round picks who are on rookie deals. 5 starters, potentially, well, 4, arguably 5. Okay. At some point, if it's not this year and it's not next year, you're going to hit a point where retaining those rookies is going to be a whole lot more difficult if you're not winning football games, if you're not getting to the big dance. It's got to change. Like, nip it in the bud. You cannot afford to just be wasteful of time. You've got a young quarterback who should be in his prime. You've got a young running back in his prime. You've got 2 young receivers in their prime. An offensive line, what am I going to say? In its prime. And it is being fumbled. 1 year is bad enough. 2 years is inexcusable. And sooner or later, you're no longer talking about a Patrick Mahomes of the world. You end up talking about a Dak Prescott. A few months later, you're not talking about a dominant Super Bowl receiving group or a guy that's been there a lot, like a Malcolm Butler or whoever that had gone there time and time again, a tight end like Gronkowski. You end up talking about players that the streets would never forget, like CJ2K, you know, or Adrian Peterson before the, you know, like you're not talking about these dominant players that have gone on to break records and become these NFL giants and win silverware. They just become, they were so good in their prime and we wasted them. And that's now the risk if they don't make a change abruptly. So I'm all out on Sirianni. If I'm the boss, he's gone tomorrow. You know, And in fairness, I would expect the same with PSN. If PSN starts struggling and I go, right, all right, we're going to fire these writers, we're going to bring new ones in, and then it still struggles. I mean, okay, we're going to change this guy for this guy, and they still struggle. I wonder who the issue is and maybe what needs to change. And that's life. They've exhausted every other option but that one. That's the one that's got to be broached. I'm not going to lie to you. This season is a wash. Ben Johnson for head coach. I'm done with the name Johnson. Another BJ initial. I can't be doing it. All right. Regardless of how good he is, not for me. Duck says it was a travesty and that the team is not on the same page. Yeah, 100%. Again, I said it last week that it feels like it's individual excellence separating this team from mediocrity. And when that isn't enough, when the team isn't mediocre, individual excellence doesn't even get you to mediocrity. When the team's mediocre, individual excellence gets you to 8 wins, 9 wins. When your team's bad, individual excellence doesn't even get you to 5. And that's worrying. Timor comes in, the biggest Eagles fan in the world, as we see with his big, lovely Eagles logo there. Raheem, nice to see you, man, says, we are going to week 5 and still haven't found our identity on offense. I see a 9-8 team or an 8-9. The 2 wins we had literally had to fight for it. We start games slow and the defense is inconsistent. 100% agree. 100% agree. This, to me, is a sped-up version of what we saw last year. It's the same thing, but on a party, on a bender. It's red flags early on, they scrape a win. Red flags again, bit of a bump, but they keep winning. They beat the Saints. An unlikely victory. They had them in 2023 as well. And then they just get pummeled. They get shafted. They get brought back down to earth and reminded, you know what you thought you were? This is not a unified team. You're right, Raheem. 100%. This is not a group of players with the same mission and the same goal. You've got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson saying he's going to belt someone's ass or something pre-game. That went well. I don't know. I never saw the belt, to be honest with you. I don't know what happened with that, but I'm glad he brought that belt because Lord knows if he didn't, that was a 60-point blowout probably, I'm assuming, given the importance of it for some reason. Just insane. Timo says Sirianni in, which is it's not the night to wind me up, sunshine, but I'm winning in our fantasy league, and that's the only solace I can take from this. Hurts can't keep the ball safe. That's a problem. Yeah, and I mean, I said earlier that there were shades of Carson Wentz earlier today, especially with the 2 turnovers or the fumble at the end. There was the fumble or the strip sack earlier. Like, it's the same thing, but for different reasons. It's the same result. Like, if your eggs are 2 weeks out of date or your eggs are a month out of date, the cake's still going to taste like shit. It doesn't matter if you're Carson Wentz and you're running around and you're trying to do too much, or you're Jalen Hurts and for whatever reason you can't read what's in the pocket. The result is turnovers. Okay, and again, I do not care. I've been apologetic to Jalen Hurts for a long time. I've excused a lot of his misfires. I've excused a lot of his poor play because he's Jalen Hurts. And you know he gets it right eventually. And you know he's got that ability to change games and to be the guy. We've all seen it. From when he first made his debut, when he played that game against the Saints, one of the first of his career, and he made a statement of, I'm here. This is my team now. And there was such a refreshing change of aura around that team. And you look at what he went on to succeed and to accomplish afterwards, you can't doubt it. But then you fast forward to today, and that's just not the same quarterback. And regardless of whether it's Sirianni's fault, other coaches' fault, a lack of teammates around him, apparently, that's a fault, or his in general, the matter of the fact is, he's still playing poorly. It doesn't matter what the reason is. He's playing bad. You can excuse it if he's a rookie. You can excuse it if it's year 2 and there aren't a lot of playmakers or the offensive line isn't there yet because they're going to get a guy in the offseason. You can be sympathetic. But by this time, this is a grown man. This is a grown man in a grown man's league. He has enough experience to understand how a pass rush works. He's been playing football his whole life. He knows how to feel pressure behind him. He knows when to step up in a pocket. He knows when to roll out. He knows when to dump it off, when to take a shot. He's not dumb. He's one of the smartest men probably the Eagles have ever had. So to make excuses for his play at this stage is just silly. Like, it really is. So, you know, there's got to be some tape analysis on it, I think, but it just was not anything close to even being remotely acceptable. Like, it was so far removed from acceptable. It makes Aaron Rodgers and the Jets look like the Kansas City Chiefs. Speechless. It's very difficult to do a live stream when you're that miffed. You've got nothing to say. Nothing to say. That's bad. For someone that covers the team as an analyst, and I've done it for 9 years, to have to sit here and be like, I don't know. What can I say? Other than they stink. And it's all falling apart. And there's got to be a change. And I don't care if it's coaching or there's a players-only meeting, since that's all the rage now. I'd much prefer Sirianni call it and actually show some strong, assertive leadership, but beggars can't be choosers. Something has to give. This isn't acceptable. What has changed since week 13 last year in the terms of the way this team is run? In terms of you can see it on the field. They don't look confident. They don't look composed. They're not enjoying the football. The soul has been sucked out of this team, and not in a good way. All right? Not in a good way. This is not the Eagles team that was fun and that the Jalen Hurts inspiration and wisdom could carry them through the darkest days. They're in the dark days and no one believes in anything. I think you could see it on Jason Kelsey's face when he retired at the end of last year that he knew. And if I'm on it, like I don't know Jason. Obviously, I mean, I've never spoken to him. I would like to assume that he could have played another year if he wanted. And I completely understand why he didn't, because he didn't want to go through that again. And he's absolutely right. 100% right to do so. If there's anyone that can wake that team up, it's him. I don't know what relationship he has, if he's still around the complex or not. But if he comes in on the bye week and can, rally the shit out of them, I think that would be very, very much appreciated. But there's just nothing, man. Drew says a point there of, they were riding high after the Saints game. They shouldn't have been. They really should not have been. There is no way they should come out of that game happy. They escaped with their tail between their legs and were lucky not to get smacked. Really? You've just escaped a war zone with a bruise on your knee. You don't go home happy. You're feeling like jubilated. You go home like, oh my God, that's over. I can't do that again. We've got to change something here before we go back in. It's just nuts, man. I don't get it. I agree with Sirianni not having any pocket awareness. He's got to stop turning the ball over in the red zone. He's done it in each game this season and just turning it over full stop. Really, that's the other thing. And I think this, if I'm honest, a light bulb has just gone off. And I think this is where Jalen is struggling now. I don't think he's a worse quarterback than he was. What I think's happening is that there is a desperation to score points. When this Eagles offense is rolling, like it did against the Saints, and Jalen can be free and relaxed and play his football the way he wants to, and it's effortless to spread that ball around, it's fine, and they score points. But all of a sudden, when it's not, it's like the score is irrelevant here, but when the offense is not moving, when they can't convert a third down, when the first down pass doesn't work, when the second down run doesn't work, there's a panic and there's a desperation. And he does have this, I will do it myself. I will put it on my back and I will force this throw. And I will stay in this pocket and I'll wait till it gets open. And it's the inverse of Carson Wentz, who would scramble around and want to do everything himself, but it's still there. It's still a guy that feels he has to go above and beyond to change everything because nothing else is working. And Aaron Rodgers is a rare breed. Patrick Mahomes is a rare breed. It's still gambling. They still throw picks. They still make mistakes. They still lose games. And the lesser quarterback you are, the lesser those outcomes become, essentially. Is Jalen Hurts a top 5 quarterback? No. They had to pay him like one, really, because it was that, or pay him like a top 3 because the market keeps moving. Look at Daniel Jones. Look at Dak Prescott. Okay? They had to. Otherwise, it was going to get stupid and it would be a massive overpay. So he's got the ability to do it, but he's not free. He's not Jalen Hurts. He is when you play college football, like the old PS2 games, and they didn't have the licenses. So they'd be like, QB9 would be your quarterback. That's Jalen Hurts. Quarterback 1. There's no aura. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's just a quarterback in a system trying to force something. When the offense rolls, then he becomes Jalen Hurts. Then he becomes this dynamic, game-changing player that can roll out of the pocket, that can make anything happen on the ground, anything happen through the air, turn mystical dead plays into first downs, turn first downs into touchdowns. And when it's not that, he's just a guy. He's a guy in a system that he's not confident in, not comfortable in. And today, like it's been pointed out, missing pieces on the offensive line gave him more pressure, forced to desperation more. I don't know how you fix it. I really don't. Dark Circle says it's coaching. They need a QB, and they need an ex-QB to put him in the bench. They need an ex-QB to put him in the bench into he can show he the man. Great. I think sorry. Look, I am shattered. I apologize for my poor reading there. I get what you're saying though. If I'm honest, the one thing that's really confused me, Dark Circle, about just the Eagles in the last 3 years is that they haven't got a veteran quarterback to help Jalen. And I know they might think he's this lovely, top 5 quarterback that can do no wrong. He can. He is. And he will. As any quarterback would. The younger you are, the more you need that tutelage. And he's not Carson Wentz. He's not a rookie quarterback. He's not Justin Fields. He's not Bo Nix. He's not JJ McCarthy. He doesn't need someone to hold his hand. But you need someone. A great example would have been Andy Dalton. Someone that's just been there. Josh McCown. That kind of person to just show you things you might miss. Someone that has been in that league for over a decade that can read the game and the same as you can, but it's like anything. If you've got 2 people looking at a problem, you're going to solve it quicker. If you've got one person, for instance, trying to evaluate the price of a stock, you might struggle. Mate, your boy 2 comes along and goes, oh, you're not looking at that properly. It changes your perspective. You need that sometimes in every walk of life. You need someone just to bounce off of and say, look, that's not right. You missed this here. This is going to happen when part A becomes part B. Like, that's just life. Why hasn't he got that? Why is he going to turn to Tanner McKee or Kenny Pickett and go, guys, look, I just threw a pick on 3rd and 7. They had it looked like a cover 3, but then they rotated, looked to a cover. What did you guys see? Dunno. Cheers. Right, I'll sort it out. Shall I? Where's my quarterback coach? Oh, he's off over there talking to Big Dom because Big Dom wants to be on camera. Like, what are we doing? There's just more to it, I think, than meets the eye. The Shabby Attic says Kelsey and Vetch retired last year because they knew how this year was going to go down. Yeah, it was probably a combination of things, but I genuinely think in my heart of hearts, yeah, like, it's not the answer anyone wants. It's not what any Eagles fan wants to hear. I wouldn't be shocked, and I wouldn't blame them. Like, again, it is subjective, but I do agree with that. Curious Pleb, love the name. Sirianni needs to go. We saw the red flags last year and chose to ignore them. The body language on the sidelines is terrible as well. Yeah, dude, the body language everywhere is terrible, to be honest. Like, across the board. Just the more you think about it, the more it just stinks. And I feel like it's just so far past the point of redemption. Okay, look, I would never use relationship analogies on this podcast. I would never do that. You know me. I would never say that, never say a word. They always say a relationship is like a glass. Yeah, that, if it cracks, you can repair it, but it's not the same glass. And the more and more cracks you have, the harder it becomes to actually use the glass. And at some point, you've just got to call it a day and get a new one. And I feel like all of these red flags, these little chinks in the armor over the last 12 to 18 months have just added up and added up and added up. And now you've also got to think, if you're a player, what's their win record in the last, 15 games? Because I think it's off the top of my head, it's 3 wins. I think it might even be less than that. Okay? What recency bias does this Eagles team have to draw on that they can get out of these situations? What? Like, before that Saquon Barkley run, which was ultimately undone anyway, What evidence was there that this Eagles team could turn it around? If this was the beginning of last year, if this was week 3 or week 4 last year, you could look at going into a half 21, 24 down and go, hey, do you know what? This team's good. I trust Jalen Hurts. I love Nick Sirianni. They're coming off a Super Bowl. They've got this. And that was true for a while. That got them to 10-2. And then you realize that maybe it wasn't that good. And maybe that we shouldn't be in these situations in the first place. And that's more worrying. Like, it's great you can dig yourself out of trouble, but if you keep going back in, it's just as damaging. And it doesn't matter. If you get up every time you get knocked down, that's great, but you keep knocking yourself down to stop it. You won't have to pick yourself up, will you? Then you can just go up further. Simple logic, some would say. So, to again, just look at the way that the last year and a half has gone and go, no. What can change? What can we do in this setting right now to change the outcome of this game? If you're Jalen Hurts and you score a touchdown, you were down 24 points, you score 7, you're back up. Defense does a number. You can see, I think they scored a field goal after that. The Eagles get the ball back. You get to 3rd down. You look at your head coach. You look at your offensive coordinator. What confidence level do you have after the last 15, 16 months to go, they've got this right. We'll get this play. It's a 1st down. We're going to win this game. Because they keep blowing leads. They keep choking it in the final closing moments. The last stanza keeps blowing up in their face. So if they're doing it before, what hope have they got of even getting to it? And I think that is starting to set in now. That there just isn't a belief that talent isn't enough in the NFL. The Eagles are literally proof of it right now. They have got all the talent in the world. It's just not enough. There is not a single piece of evidence from week 4 today to week 4, 2023, where Jalen Hurts could point to mid-game today and say, do you know what? Nick got us out of trouble in that situation. He can do it again. There's not a single moment in the last 18 months a player on defense could look over to the sideline and Vic Fangio and think, do you know what? Week 15, week 16 last year, we were down 15, we came back and won. We can do it again. At what point as a wide receiver do you look at a teammate and say, we've been here before. We can get out of this. Because they continue to fail to do so. And the more you fail to do so, the more the belief diminishes. And you just end up in this horrible downward spiral that they've been in for a year. And it doesn't matter who they add. It doesn't matter who they bring in, who they sign, who they trade for. It's still the same. And yeah, it's just got to change, man. It's crazy. But yeah, stating how the team feels, saying the reason why players making decisions a bit insincere. I think again, this is all subjective. You know, I think all of analysis is speculation. You know, it's just going off feel, isn't it? Like, I can't sit here concrete and say the team doesn't believe, because then they'll come out and say they do. That's the nature of football anyway. But you can read emotions enough to make a judgment. And I think, you know, that's all we do, isn't it, really? Like, whether it's fans or it's analysts, people in the building, people on TV, it's all just making a judgment of what you see and what I interpret. So all this is an interpretation. And I interpret that this team is an utter mess. And there's a lot that needs to change. But, you know, it's... Meanwhile, back to the glass analogy, depends on how it's repaired. The Japanese have a method of repair with gold to fill the cracks that makes it better and more beautiful. Do you know what? You are a wise man, aren't you? See, this is what the Eagles need on their team. All right? Someone, a la myself, a la Jalen Hurts, whoever, to be a bit, you know, wobbly potentially about the current state of things. And Duck to go, the Japanese can repair a glass with gold to make it more beautiful. You're the gold. Repair the glass. That's what we need. Get Duck in the building. Get Duck on that coaching staff. Get Big Dom out. Get Big Duck in. All right? This is the way forward. That is genuinely beautiful. If I'm honest, I did not expect that. Thank you for sharing it with me. You learn something new every day. Beautiful. Sorry, I was trying not to give you ASMR content into the microphone there, but yeah, just not a pretty day at the office at all, was it? If there's any questions you guys have or any comments, obviously please let me know before we come to an end for this post-game therapy session, which was very much needed. Tomorrow's going to be a fun day at the office. I need to write an awful lot, I think. Alex has a great question, one that really should be asked to Nick Sirianni. Where is the first and fourth quarter running game? I would say the fourth quarter, it almost felt like they pulled Saquon out, and may just be because they were losing and they gave up hope. But in terms of the first quarter, yeah, completely agree. Either they should be running it anyway. Like when you've got a run game, having said that, they were down 2 starters on the offensive line, and that's not great. So maybe that played a role. Even then, like Jalen Hurts can still run, Saquon Barkley can still run. We've seen Saquon turn water into wine a million times. You'd think he is a supreme religious figure. So there's no reason that can't happen. But there's just no rhythm on offense. You're 100% correct. Like there is no feel. It's like they go run. When you've got a back as good as Saquon Barkley, I really don't understand how you can sit there and just not use him. Like how can you go up against the Bucs and not try? Like if you're being blown out, think of it this way. That first quarter, they went down 14 points. 14 points. Straight away. Within like a minute, they were 14 points down, it felt like. And the early answer for them is to pass their way back into the game, which isn't working. But after the first quarter, when you know that's not working, and you see that the Bucs have had 11 minutes, 44 seconds of possession in the first quarter. The first quarter of the game. Some teams don't even have that in an entire game. The Bucs had it in the first quarter, right? And you go, okay, well, maybe now we need to keep possession. Maybe if they're dominating possession, why don't we try and retain it and stop them draining the clock and the life out of this game and scoring at will? Maybe that's an idea. Maybe we've just paid this running back an insane amount of money because he's one of the best at his position in the entire league. Maybe we entrust him with the ball to move the chains, to keep the clock moving and make something happen. And instead they didn't. And that is just as criminal as anything else. So whether that comes down to game scripting, whether it comes down to play calling, I don't know. But yeah, it's just across the board, absolutely shambolic. Isaac there says the first 15 plays have to be better orchestrated than they aren't. I mean, I'm not being funny as well. Like, the first 15 plays are probably the best your offense will look during a game in terms of structure. Like, the plays might not be, and they might not work as well as some of the ones later on. But in terms of a structure, they should, because they're the first 2 drives are scripted, right? Like, that's a commonality in the NFL, that for most teams, at very, very least, the first drive is completely scripted. This is what we're going to run the first drive. And if that's not working, that's an issue. If the second, and it just compounds and compounds and compounds, like you just start chasing losses, and that's exactly what they've been doing. So I don't know, like all in all, just a mess, isn't it, really, across the board? I don't know where they go from here. I would not be shocked to see a report in about 4 hours' time saying that Nick Sirianni has got a meeting tomorrow with Jeffrey Lurie. And he probably won't get fired. He'll get another slap on the wrist. And that'll be that. And then we'll go in to face the Browns after this weekend. Everything will be terrible. We'll lose to Deshaun Watson. That will be terrible. And he will still be here. And he will continue to be here. And do you know what? A sick, twisted part of me is just relishing in the day that Sirianni loses. Like, he has his Joker era, where Sirianni loses the nice, the soft, the warm personality, the engaging, the empathetic, the sympathetic. Loses that completely in terms of, I didn't know who I was when I put on the mask, get a little bit of Bane in there, and just go nuclear. And just, like Doug Peterson did it. Doug Peterson was once the most wholesome coach in football. Would have a laugh and joke with anyone. Used to love talking to the media. And after that Super Bowl, it was just stone cold. Like, stone cold. And he would get passive aggressive, and there'd be little snarky remarks, and there'd be little snipes between the reporters and himself. I want to see Nick Sirianni's version of that. Let's see how he handles the pressure. All this stuff about accountability, and I'm not seeing anything. Let's see how he handles pressure when it's on him and not the team. Because the team's doing a bad job of it on the field. Let's see what he can do with it off the field. I want to see if he crumbles in presses. I want to see if he can actually rally a locker room. This is where you find out if he is a good coach or not. And again, I mean that in the best way. If he is a good NFL coach, he will get them out of this hole. If he's a good NFL coach, they beat the Browns in 2 weeks, they go back to their best and they start rolling through opponents. If he is a bad coach and a good person with people, the players will love him and they'll be sad that he goes, but they'll also be happy that he's gone and they just won't really say anything. And the team will move on and they'll win straight away and it'll be a rebound game. It happens. You get a new coach bounce across a lot of sports. The NFL is certainly one of them. Soccer is another. It would happen. If Nick Sirianni leaves, it doesn't matter who they bring in. There'll be a new coach bounce because they want to prove a point. You know? It's just wild. It's just it's not a situation I honestly foresaw. I thought they would be undefeated to this point. Who have they played, really? Who have they actually played that's any good? Right? Week 1, Packers should be good, aren't yet. Will be good, aren't yet. The Falcons could be good, aren't yet. The Saints shouldn't have been good. Started off remarkably, beat them. Did well today, didn't they, by the way? So there you go. Saints were great today, weren't they? Meanwhile, couldn't do anything against Atlanta. And then they faced today's opponent, the Tampa Bay Bucks, who were, again, hot to start the year, struggled a bit, had a little bit of a blip. And again, just like in the playoffs last year, just got dog walked. Absolutely pushed around, bullied, thrown around. No fight. It was never close. The game was never in reach because the Eagles continued to make it so. It should have been. That Saquon run should have opened things up. The touchdown should have opened things up. It didn't. They could have got back into it 2 or 3 times. That game was not over until, 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And that's the scary thing. This team's good enough to even hang in there when it's all going to shit. You just need them to just be mediocre. Don't even play great football. Just be average. Just be average. That's all this team needs to be is average, and they'll be absolutely fine, and they can't even do that. And before I get any more worked up, we're going to call it there. Because what I worked out last week was I wasn't going to stream Monday because I ran out of material. I just realized I rinsed through it all on the Sunday stream. So I won't make that mistake again. I'll be streaming tomorrow night, and we will do maybe a deeper dive into Jalen Hurts. If I can get a hold of the tape, maybe we can stream that. I can see what I can cook up. But yeah, just not good. Really, really not good. There's going to have to be some harsh discussions, both within and outside the organization. I, for one, genuinely think the best result will be a Nick Sirianni firing. I will get more into that tomorrow. I will try and get some Jalen Hurts tape on screen share for you guys so we can kind of go through that together and hopefully just, see what's going on. See what he's seeing, what he isn't seeing. Is it player specific? Is it mentality? We can try and go through all of that Monday night. So that'll be Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Would love for you guys to come and hang out. On your way out of the theatre, if you could leave a like and put your popcorn in the bin, that would be amazing. So it's, again, best way to help this channel grow. It sucks today went the way it did. Hopefully we can enjoy a week off of misery. That's the one silver lining here, is that the misery stops for a week. We can now just enjoy a week of NFL football, stress-free, having a ball. You know, that's all you could ever wish for. So from myself, Liam Jenkins, we'll discuss plenty more about this over the coming weeks, and I'm sure over the coming days as well with the team on a bye. I appreciate you all for tuning in after such an aggravating defeat, and one that I'm sure is going to cause a rupture of emotions for everyone and probably a few blood vessels. I'll see you tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Thank you for hanging out. Go Birds to a point. I'll see you soon.